Things came to a head in terms of our spending differences, and I'm not going to be a kept woman. You're trying to control me. I'm a business owner. I'm not an allowance kind of girl.
My husband and I are both prominent financial advisors in New Zealand, and we struggle chatting about money. We're opposites in many respects, and I see my role as procurement, and Tim sees his role as making sure we don't go bust because of my procurement decisions. And we had an argument.
A disagreement.
Sticky, uncomfortable conversations with your partner, whether it be about money or other things, often people don't feel comfortable talking about it because it's like written off as like, oh, well, your relationship is not good. But every single couple has to navigate, all of the complexities of the fact that we're different people.
So you have to have that breakdown so you can have that breakthrough and find a new system. Because if it's not working, it's not working, and that is normal.
What would be some good starting points to get on the same page, to have those big picture joint goals?
One thing that people need to do is...
This podcast episode is with a husband and wife who actually got in touch with us a while ago. I remember I opened the email and laughed out loud. It was so funny. And I think we were talking about relationships and money. And anyway, these two are financial advisors. They've got their own company called Rival Wealth. They work one-on-one with clients. They've got a team of financial advisors. They are so financially literate and capable. And yet they still have, they call them now disagreements, not arguments, but misalignments when it comes to their finances within their relationship, with their big goals, with their everyday spending. And it was just one of those conversations where, I was honestly really impressed that they felt confident and comfortable speaking to us about their experience being misaligned with finances, particularly when this is their career of choice and they run a financial advice company. So it was very honest, very raw, super funny. They were the coolest couple. And I think it's just such a good reminder of how much all of us are just on this learning process of figuring out how to be better with our money, how to, spend it more wisely, how to be aligned, not only with ourselves, but then also with someone else if we're in a relationship. And it was just really good fun. Other than that, we hope that you loved the episode. And thank you so much to Carissa and Tim. I loved this conversation. I feel kind of like we are in a therapy room and I'm doing couples therapy. Mm-hmm. We were actually just speaking off mic about how this podcast and conversation kind of came to be. So one of the conversations that we've had on the curve for a long time in different capacities is the idea of love and money and relationships, which there is definitely not one size fits all. Everyone has their quirks when it comes to the way they manage money, in terms of the way they like being in relationship. But we were speaking about something on the podcast and Carissa reached out via email, and I can't actually, can you remind me what the email was?
Oh, I'm going to throw myself under the bus, but you girls were talking about, or you're asking questions in your stories about tell us your money experiences.
That's right.
You said something and my brain just went, oh my God, yes, we need to talk about this. And so I think I sent you girls an email basically introducing myself, saying, hey, my husband and I are both prominent financial advisors in New Zealand, and we struggle chatting about money. We're opposites in many respects. And then if you ever want a podcast guest, please reach out. I'd love to chat. And then we were laying in bed one night and checking my emails, and you replied going, oh my God, hello, I'm a sponny spender with ADHD too. I would love to have you and Tim on the podcast. And I had to go, hey darling, how do you feel about airing our dirty laundry on the curb? And he was like, oh, yeah, all right.
Oh,
and it was very simple, and here we are.
Well, look, Tim, thank you for agreeing to come on.
No problems. Here we are.
It's actually quite fun because we don't often have men on the podcast, and I think it's really nice to have a combination. And also, I feel excited to speak to you both, mainly because obviously in your email you were transparent in the fact that you two deal with money differently.
Yeah.
But on top of that, the fact that you also work in the financial space, and you know, I think there's such a misconception that if you work in finance, you've got it all sorted. Or, you know, people probably from the outside for the two of you would just assume it's really easy and super straightforward and you've got it down. And I think it's such a refreshing take to be like, do you know what? We're super financially literate, but the way we relate with money is different. And so it's been like a learning process within our relationship. And also, even when it comes to like grey areas or sticky, uncomfortable conversations with your partner, whether it be about money or other things, often people don't feel comfortable talking about it because it's like written off as like, oh, well, your relationship is not good, or, oh, you know, like people are so worried about judgment. But every single couple has to navigate, you know, all of the complexities of the fact that we're different people with different habits, with different upbringings. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to speak to you both.
I think what we've learned over time, and it's been really interesting. So we flew up to Auckland yesterday and had a couple of work meetings and then went out for dinner and had our money date. And we had an argument, just...
A disagreement.
Yeah, sorry, too strong. Disagreement in the last 24 hours. Do you know what I mean? But I think the difference, and over time, is we've evolved in that no longer they're deal breakers. They're very much now we learn to meet in the middle.
Rather than it being this is like explosive or deal breakery, it's like, okay, we know that this is kind of where we land a few times. So like, how can we find a middle ground?
Yeah, not just a few times, like most times. Because Tim gets extremely frustrated because in his role he gives a lot of advice. I don't take to his advice.
Totally.
I build resistance, and I see my role as procurement of the family.
Got you.
And Tim sees his role as making sure we don't go bust, really, because of my procurement decisions. Is that fair to say? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about how, if we could maybe, Tim, can you explain what you're like with money? How do you approach it? If you were to describe you as a person, like your money personality, what would that be?
You have the people who are squirrels and they put money away and they save and they save and they save and they don't really spend on anything, and then they're going to die the richest person in the cemetery. There's going to be heaps of money there. Whereas at the other end of the spectrum, you have the person that wants to live for today, and what's the point in saving for retirement because I might not make it that far anyway. I think I certainly am a lot closer to being a squirrel. At the other end, as opposed to Carissa, who is more the sporadic spender at the other end of the spectrum. I think I'm probably a lot more realistic about spending stuff. So I'm very much let's try and get a plan together and get some goals, and then save the money towards those goals and pay them off. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, Chris is very much, I'll come up with a wish and then that wish will turn into something great. Because we've now wished for it, the universe is going to then come down and provide for us.
Carissa, would you like to take the mic?
So he's not wrong. But I think where the misalignment sometimes happens is that Tim would be happy living in a tent and doesn't really have a materialistic bone in his body. Like he's very much, and that's an odd thing to say about a man who manages money for other people, but it's not wealth and what the materialistic things it creates is not his driver. Like his long-term goal, when you talk about long-term goals, Tim's talking about 10, 15 years out, his retirement. He has a 100-year plan.
Right.
Whereas I'm more focused on Christmas Day this year. Seems like quite a long-term goal to me. Mm-hmm. And so there have been a lot of fun times in our life because I've made him do things that he hasn't wanted to spend money on. And I've asked you in the last couple of days reflecting, did you regret X, Y, or Z? And he's like, no, not at all. But in the future, we need to have a detailed, orientated plan. And so... we need to have a budget to do things, and then we need to go, well, how are we going to get there, rather than you just going, oh my God, look at this. Wouldn't this be awesome to do with the kids? I'm big picture and you're detailed, orientated.
So 8 years ago, you had quite a big realization where there was a bit of a pinnacle moment where you realised the difference in money personalities. What was happening at the time, and how did you come to kind of, because you've been together for a long time, like 17 years, is that right?
We've actually been together 23. It just took him a while to put a ring on the finger and realise that he'd
The good
met
thing
the
was
one.
there.
Well, it sounds like
It's
he's a
training,
planner.
It's a training camp,
Yeah. He had to really...
Steady steps.
He really needed a 10-year, like, this is going to take a while type
I
approach.
need to be sure.
And Chris is like, tell me now.
Yeah. But
And I think that 8 years was then we bought some land in 2008, which was the global financial crisis, and so there was obviously pretty stressful time. About 8 years ago, we built a house on that land, and things came to a head in terms of our spending differences, in terms of our personalities, in terms of Carissa then wanting to go, right, we need to have this and this and this and this and this, and then me being as tight as anything to say, well, no, we can't have that, like we only need, like we've got 3 kids, but we probably only need 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom and stuff like that. And that process was exceptionally stressful, and not just because of our money personalities, things that are going wrong, and there's always decisions that need to be made, and there's always stuff that's happening, and so those parts of it were very stressful. At the same time as then having to then decide on the bits and pieces of what we had to give up and what we had to put in to be able to sort of stick within our budget. So
we probably were over ambitious with our build, and we've added the interior stuff, over time. Like we had an old couch, we used to sit on deck chairs, that's never, and it's sort of evolved.
It took us 4 years to get curtains.
Yeah. Whereas most people, you find, if you had 2 of me in the house and not a Carissa and a Tim, I would have gone, let's just up the mortgage and do it all and do it once, do it properly, and then we don't have to think about it, right? I would have taken the easy road, whereas Tim takes the hard road.
So your process was, I would rather pay less and this be a more elongated process.
Yes.
Carissa was like, let's just flag the admin
Let's make
and
it
go
pretty.
for it.
Yes.
Yeah. And so throughout that process, because I'm imagining this showed up in other ways throughout your relationship in the earlier years, what did that look like, and why was this particular situation sort of the one that you thought we need to rethink the way that we do money together?
How it happens is I go, let's do this, and Tim goes, no. And he goes, let's do this. And then my mindset is a little bit, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So I often ask for forgiveness rather than permission, and I do it anyway. And then that would frustrate the hell out of him. And I knew better. I knew it wasn't good for our relationship from a communication point of view, but I also...
It felt like the path of least resistance. You were like, I'll just do this instead, even though it's not ideal.
Yeah. Or my other strategy used to be, is no longer, although you might disagree, but yesterday, is I'd have a tantrum.
How does that look? What's a tantrum?
Terrible. It's terrible.
So I'm busy making dinner, and Tim is choosing that time to show me graphs about the progress, of money and where it's going and how much we're saved. And I'm like, I'm so disinterested.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And so he wasn't feeling heard. And then when I said, oh my God, I found these incredible light fittings, he wasn't interested. We had to find somewhere in the middle. You wanted me to sit down and go, okay, oh my God, we're saving, that's great. And oh yes, I can see where we need to be, and now I know how much we have to spend. And what I wanted from you was, oh my God, that looks amazing, go for it. And it wasn't working for either of us. So he had to relinquish some control and go, okay, well, if that makes you happy, that's fine, do it. But if we're doing that, you also need to sit down and look at this so that I feel you understand the bigger picture.
It felt as though the other person wasn't buying into the thing that they cared about or spending time on, was kind of the underlying thing, whether it was how you could make the house that you both were going to live in beautiful and lovely and comfortable, or what that then meant for the financial plan that Tim had put together that was kind of being shoved under the rug. Was that kind of the premise?
Yeah.
Was this the kind of thing, though, that was happening earlier in the relationship in different ways with money? Like whether it be like planning a holiday and you were like, there's flights to Greece for £30, when you were living over in Europe, let's do it. And then Tim was kind of like, well, I didn't plan for it. Like, did that show up in ways earlier?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a good example and a bad example. When we were in Europe Europe, we were really good when we were saving because we knew we wanted to do this big travel when we came home, and we both wanted to set up business. So we both had a common goal, and it was really easy. And I used to just give my money to Tim, and he'd save it, and we
spreadsheet it, graph it,
and sort it, and it was good, and we were on the same page. But then another example was then when we were early on in our career. You know how Gramercy, they used to do this reverse auction?
Yes.
And so I bought us a holiday to Tahiti, which was a bargain.
It was exceptionally cheap.
Yeah. But the problem was when we got there, we didn't have money.
Well, what happened was that it was like $1,200 for the two of us to Tahiti, which was incredible, at this 5-star resort. And when we were like, this is amazing. And then we got to this. We went for dinner the first night. We got there. We went to the main bar to have dinner at the main restaurant, and it was $180 US dollars per person for a main meal. And so we were like, well, we don't. I had a tantrum because I was like, we don't have any money to pay for any of this stuff. And so we went down the road and we went to this Chinese restaurant. And we had chicken chow mein and lemon chicken. It was what we had every night. But I think that was one of those things where we had that piece where for us in terms of that money personality thing, in terms of that struggle of Carissa went and did something which she thought was going to be great, but then hadn't really thought too much about it. And then so when we put the planning around it in terms of how much did we need, that was a great example of us spending beyond our means. Like once we got there, we didn't actually have enough funds to actually do the things that we wanted.
I think that's such a good example. And actually, weirdly, I think it's holidays that get you because you don't think about the spending when you get there, which always blows out, or the accommodation. Like it's to travel well and not totally F up your financial plan. I think it's so difficult. I get that. One of the things that you have mentioned, like off mic from our research, is the idea that aligning on bigger financial goals, like what you were saying when it comes to saving for a big holiday or a bbig trip home, is almost easier because you're both on the same page. But then when it comes to smaller financial decisions, whether it's groceries or other things, there can be disagreements. Why do you think that is, and how have you managed to work towards smaller money decisions not becoming an issue?
Well, you were right on this one, so you go for it.
Well, yeah, so probably about that same time, I suggested to Carissa that she needed to have some money of her own because I felt like I was putting money all the time into it, a joint bank account in those days, and joint discretionary spending, joint expenses, everything was in the same pot. And I always felt that I was always topping that up the whole time because it was always stuff was just leaving. And then
procurement.
And on the flip side, if Carissa wanted to go and buy me a birthday present or something that was outside of the box, she had to go and then try and smuggle money out of that account to go to friends and stuff, And so I suggested that we needed to, split our accounts out and have these discretionary accounts where we had our own money sitting in those accounts and have an expenses account, which is what we do now and what we did. But my God, the tantrum that happened was... I'm not going to be a kept woman. You're trying to control me. I'm a business owner. I'm not an allowance kind of girl. It's my business too. I can do what I want.
All valid, can I just say? I do think it's valid because, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Tim, but I do think money in relationships is very hard to get right, where there is equal amount of autonomy and decision making and empowerment with the way you're doing money because... Yeah, and it obviously changes depending on your stage of life. Like if you're not working, we had a message even yesterday from someone who came to one of our events and they said, my mum still has to ask her husband, i.e. my dad, for cash every time she wants to spend money. It transcends everything, and it's something that every couple struggles with.
And I think that ultimately is that for us then to say we're gonna separate out our spending in terms of our overall expenses and our discretionary funds and stuff, it actually then at that stage gave Carissa a whole lot more autonomy because she now has that money going to her every week to spend on the kids and all the other stuff that happens and the school shoes and all that sort of stuff, which was beforehand was all just coming from the one pot. But then also then it gets to have her fun stuff as well in terms of anything else that she wants to do. So I think
but you hit the nail on the hammer. So it is
on the head.
Head on the hammer, hammer on the head. Oh, well, whatever.
I think it's you hit the nail on the head.
You've hit the nail on
the head. But now it's sounding confusing and I'm actually unsure.
Oh, whatever.
Carissa struggles with these one-liners at times.
Yeah, I do. There's so much going on. Tim couldn't change my spending habits, right? The more the more he said, why the hell do you need another dress? Or why, like, whatever. He couldn't change it. I needed to get to a point where I had inspiration for myself, if that makes sense. I needed to go, what is this? And yes, family units, the income is going in to fund the joint life. And I really didn't like being told that I was going to be paid an amount of money. But then I sat on it and I walked away, had my tantrum and came back. And I said, well, let's give it a go. And I have to say it's the best thing we ever did for our relationship, because what it's done is it's given me an amount where if something's coming up, I can squirrel away, and I have my own savings accounts for things that are important to me that he doesn't care about, like yoga retreats. As many times as I've asked you to come with me.
So good, Tim. You should really reconsider that.
I think he would benefit.
I think you would
I think he would benefit.
The squirrel would relax.
The squirrel would really relax. The squirrel's actually quite flexible.
Really?
Yeah.
Can touch his toes.
Yes, very much so.
That's impressive.
More flexible than me.
Still almost get the splits done these days.
Like really.
Oh, were you an ex-gymnast? Where did that come from?
No, but it's given me control, and I think it's a fundamental of human nature to want to be able to control your own decisions, and even if it's just a small bit. So when couples or people are starting out in business and there's no extra, even if you had $10 a week that you could spend with no questions asked, and then the common goal is to work together to increase that over time. Do you know what I mean? I think it's empowering to have control over something.
So how did you come to a place where it didn't feel like Tim is giving you an allowance, but actually you've collectively decided that this is equally your allowances? How did you get to a place where it felt empowering and like a joint decision rather than I'm being told that this is my...
I was going to say the moment it felt like a good idea was the week after I first got money into my account. And I was like, ooh... I
can spend this.
Yeah. And
you had autonomy to do what you wanted with it.
I think it was the moment it happened.
Yeah.
But then also realizing outside of that is that everything we do together, we are aligned on. Like our business, how we roll in business, how we think about people in the community, what we want for our kids. We know exactly what we're doing in a year. We know exactly what we want in 5 years. We know exactly how we want our retirement. Do you know what I mean? We're very aligned because we have those tough conversations often. Where you called out yesterday and said you always want it your way or you're not listening. Like you've got to have those breakdowns to actually, that sounds cheesy, but it's like you have to have that breakdown so you can have that breakthrough and find a new system. Because if it's not working, it's not working, and that is normal. But I feel like you can evolve over time as well. And I think, and I've seen it with you speaking with Vic, is that the more you learn, you're like, oh, I could do that, or I could change that. Like you can't go to the gym and lose 10 kilos overnight, right? But it's those small little consistent habits or those things that you do often that help. And I think I've evolved a lot. But what we do well together is we plan together.
It's the high level, and then it's figuring out the systems that then make that work rather than having the big plan and then finding that the stumbling blocks are because the process isn't working for one of you or both of you.
I think it's knowing that in difficult times, people kind of feel like it's impossible to get back onto the same page financially. And the one thing that people need to do is focus back in on what is important to both of you. Like, so Tim's goal of high debt repayment, we're doing it. Like, doesn't really excite me, but it's...
I'm very excited by paying down debt.
I know, he really loves it. He likes...
Really? It's a game.
He loves it. But I think it's the things that we innately agree on is our family unit and our kids and what experiences we want to give them and values we want them to know before they actually leave and don't really want to hang out with us anymore, right? So for me, that's a very small window. So I'm like, yeah, let's do that, but can we focus on this first and then ramp it up again? Like, can we just pull back here so that we can do this?
And when you say pull back here, do you mean can we just loosen the reins a little bit on the debt repayments so that we can give our kids that thing we talked about, and then we can get back to that? Is that what you mean?
We both really want that. So that's the part where I'm motivated to have better spending habits, and I meal plan. I do lots of things. I've managed my ADHD without knowing I've done it for years. So I'm happy to do all of those things and squirrel away if I know if the carrot is there. Do you know what I mean?
That makes so much sense to me because I'm very similar. I think if I have a goal or I know what the deadline is or I'm aware of the timeline, I can make it happen, because I'm motivated by it and I'm on board. But when I don't have that, I find it really hard to understand like the reason why I am doing something, all those small decisions that make up to the big overarching. So I totally get that. What would be some good starting points to get on the same page, to have those big picture joint goals?
I want to see what you say.
I think strategically, let's then sit down and talk about our goals and stuff. And those goals might not be, 10 years out or thinking about retirement and stuff. We're very good at dreaming in terms of the things that we do, like we're places that we might live in the future or places we might travel to. So I think, wouldn't it be great to go and, spend 3 months living in Greece or whatever it might be, this is...
Can I come?
So there's all that stuff. There's all that stuff that we dream about, and the dreaming part, and then the goal piece, then bringing it back to that money bit as well. I think is a really important starting point, because you can have all the dreams in the world, but if you don't have the money to do it, then that's sort of like where Chris is the dreamer and she comes up with the big ideas, and then I'm the one that puts the building blocks in to say, rightio, I'm allowing us to have $500 to do that or $5,000 to do that or whatever it might be.
I think it's really important for couples to go, hey, we have a problem. So, hey, Soph, we're not aligned here. Are you keen to get on the same page and get financially organised? Okay, well, there's going to be some tough times. Do we agree that if you don't like something I say, you can say X, Y, Z, and we'll change the topic, or we can pull the plug, have 15 minutes and come back to it? Like, you've just got to make a plan of getting that conversation started. And then with anything, you've got to look at reflection of what you've been doing. So we tell clients, and I know you guys have talked about cash management and budgeting and all the various ways you can call it, but we always say to people, you can do it into an Excel spreadsheet or just write it down at a high level. Don't be so detailed orientated if you're someone like me. But go, what have we been spending over the last 3 months? So you get a bit of an average and go, well, if we're spending, like you love camembert cheese and Pinot Gris, but you buy the $60 Pinot Gris. And so we have this food budget for the house of $300, but babe, you're spending $650 a week, and we can tell. So maybe just going to 300 isn't realistic, but how are we going to get there? So let's try and work together to figure out how we can get it to 500 and then down to 400. And with all of those things, you need to have a little bit of a treat, though. You need to have a carrot. Most people work with a carrot or a stick. So you need to reflect. You can't just go, okay, from now on in, we're drawing a line in the sand and this is what we're doing, if you don't actually own your mistakes.
So would reflecting this back, be step one would be getting on the same page with a financial date. So going for dinner, setting time aside, thinking, okay, we're going to try, and it doesn't need to be romantic, but we're actually putting time aside for each other to talk about it, to make sure that our big picture things that we want, because at the end of the day, money gives us freedom to do the things that we want.
Yeah.
That's the starting point. And like step one. Step two would be, okay, if that's what we both agree we want, what are we currently doing and what is going to be stopping us in the future from reaching those goals, and therefore what needs to change in order to get to that common goal? Is that kind of what you're saying?
100%. Yeah. And then even to take that one step further, looking at your banking system. So we have a lot of accounts. So like for us, travel's important, right? So every time we draw money, a portion goes into that. So when we go to do something, we're not creating it from nothing. We're going, okay, so this is how much we're going to spend each year on this, and it's there. So we never go backwards to get what we want. We work for it. And I think it's a really important lesson with kids as well, because they have less delayed gratification than we ever had, right? And for them, so our kids have got Square Money. They pay for things on their phones, and if they have cash, they give us their cash and say, just put it on my card. So they're tapping things. They've got no idea of the value of things, right? So it's about that delayed gratification, just because if you can't afford to do one of those discretionary things outright, or you haven't saved towards it, like we're kind of the mindset now that it doesn't happen.
What have you found, like with the way that you've spoken to them, what has landed when teaching your kids better habits with money?
They've got their own money.
They've got their own money, right? And so we both firmly believe that kids should buy their own technology and their own first car. So when Monty first got an iPad, he created a business, Monty's Delights, and he sold Ginger Crunch. We charged him for the ingredients, and he enterprised over 4 weekends and had $600 to buy his own iPad.
It's so cool.
He never dropped it, never broke it. You know, our kids buy their own phones through saving, washing cars, doing lawns, busking.
And they buy them secondhand on...
Trade Me, yeah, they don't buy new. So we're really cheap. We pay our kids $5 a week, and for that they...
Earth are they saving for an iPad?
No, wait.
Sorry,
I will get there, because, you're going to be working a long time. But for that $5, they are expected to make their bed. They have turns at doing the dishwasher. They have the basic jobs, right? And recycling. But the brilliant thing with Square One, which is a New Zealand-based company, is it's an app-based, so they get their own FPOS card. But on one side, you can put in jobs to earn money, so they could do extra things, and then they charge us, and then they invoice us basically, and we go, "Yep, you've done that. Okay, you pay that." Or they do jobs for other people, or grandparents give them money for having good reports, or whatever it may be, but they're spending their own money.
So they're motivated to do something for money. They're not given it as in like your allowance is this for nothing. They're learning the idea of...
so that's their discretionary spending. Now we've got one son in year 10 and our daughter's just started year 9, and the deal is that when they get to college, they are responsible for their own clothing and shoes, so they get an allowance for a term, and they manage it. Now, our son last year, I didn't buy him a new hoodie at school because I was like, don't know if you're going to play sport. And then he bought one himself, right? And he manages it. We know that we're going to give our daughter has her allowance and she has spent it all, right? But also she needs to learn that lesson under our roof. So we've got 5 years to drill into her that when it's gone, and this is what that needed to do. You know, we're teaching them fundamentally managing their own money.
My favourite was as a dad when they were younger was whenever we got ice creams and stuff or when we got milkshakes or whatever it might be, I always had the parent tax where I wouldn't get anything and they'd get it, and then I'd take like a third of whatever they had. They might get angry at me, but then Carissa would always explain to them that was what was going to happen in life, was that
anything good in life, you've got to pay on it.
There's going to be paying some taxes on it.
Oh, that's genius. So it's the idea that they are already getting used to the idea that you might get paid X amount, but it doesn't mean you get to keep it all.
Yes. Yeah. So you get like the 2 scoops of ice cream, but, you know, a half a scoop's going to disappear because Dad's taken that because I paid for it in the first place.
And you like ice cream.
Yeah, I do like ice cream a lot too, yeah.
It's very good. You're really weaving in like what works for you as parents.
And probably even in more recent times, we've gone when we took some of their savings that they had and we put $200 each into which was their money into a like an investment app, and so we asked them to spend $50 each on 4 different stocks, and they've gone through, and now we've got a little competition going where whoever the winner is each of in terms of returns each month gets an extra $10 bonus. So
this is obviously not a normal process,
but again, they're getting old enough now that Monty is the oldest one. He's now thinking about PE ratios and stuff like that. And Oscar, who's the youngest one, is he's quite sensitive to the fact, like he wanted to go into NVIDIA recently and it went down like 20%, and so he was basically having a massive tantrum because his $50 had gone down to 40, and so he was like really emotional about it. And so I think again, it's getting them. It's not just the piece around teaching them about investing; it's also that piece around the emotions of losing losing money and the emotions of gaining money, and that might not just be in shares, that could be dropping $20 in the street or whatever it might be as well. It's how do you get better at that?
So when it comes to teaching them about money, you're essentially trying to reflect back the world around them from a tax perspective, from an investing returns, the risk of it perspective. Have you ever tried a tactic to teach them financial literacy and it didn't work? And you were like, oh, I understand why that didn't. Because a lot of people listening, I imagine, would have young kids and might try something, it doesn't work. And then they're kind of like, okay, well, that didn't work. I'm just going to give up. Like I know for my parents, they tried things and it didn't work. But then not having the awareness or okay, we need to change tact, that didn't sink in. So let's try something else.
Like when we went away, we saved to go away. Ollie spent all of her money the first first place at Sephora. Do you know what I mean? And then she had to learn. And then she had to learn.
Like she's really taken after her mother.
This is great. So so then she said, "What do I do, Dad? I haven't got any money for the next 3 months. We were away for 3 months, and I've got no money for 3 months." So I lent her $100. She had to pay me back the month after we got back. She had then the opportunity to do jobs and stuff, and I charged her interest on the $100, so she had to pay me back $105.
It's so clever.
And if it went past the 20th of September, then there was penalty interest, and I wrote it all out, and I got her to sign it as a contract. And do you know what she tried to do? As soon as we got to the next country, she tried to steal the contract from my bag, because then she thought, if the contract's gone, I won't know what was happening.
We call her the barrister.
She's sneaky, she's clever, she's creative.
Yeah.
But I think as parents, if it doesn't work, just like you're having a relationship conversation, if it's not working, you need to try another way. Like you can't just leave it and do nothing. Like I don't believe that's the best answer. It's about that enabling, right? By just giving them money, you're not enabling them or empowering them to do it for themselves.
If you were to describe the process from top to bottom with how you teach your kids about money, from like they get this, they do this, we do. Can you just, because I think that as like a standalone, almost like recipe that has worked for you, like just the process top to bottom.
So I think we automate the pocket money, because if you give cash, you've run out of cash, you don't have it, and so you forget to do it. So it's about automating it so that it happens.
And remind me with the amount that they get again.
And this varies for different people, but for us, we give them a base rate of $5, and then they can
earn more.
They have potential, so they earn different amounts. Depends on who's getting in the firewood, who's washing the car, who's mowing the paddocks.
Just so we don't sound too stingy as well. Like if Olive cleans the car, she gets like $40 or $50 because like if we take that to a groomer to do the car for us, it's going to cost us like $150. So she hasn't figured out yet that we're actually getting a $100 discount.
Well, hopefully she doesn't listen to this. You'll be getting some upped rates.
And she would expect it too, which is good, right? We want strong women in the future. We want women who know their worth. We want people empowered to make better decisions. The more you earn or the more success you have in life, also you have the ability to help others, right? The more you do for the community, the more you're in a position to lift those around you. And so we demonstrate that to our kids as well. But you're looking for a formula. So I would say from an early age, we've had a job roster. So our kids used to fight about going in the front of the car. If you're on the dishwasher, it's your day in the front. So we have simple systems that work, and they all do 2 days each. And then Sunday, if I ask you, you just do it, and that's the rules. And if you're not doing dishwasher, you're doing the pool cover or you're doing the recycling. Like everyone has a job, and it just rotates, just like a kids camp where you're doing the dishes one morning, you're clearing up.
And their baseline that they get for that is their $5. That's just, it's across the board. Yeah. You get your money for doing the thing that you're on.
And that is slave labour, right? But they are also part of the family.
And I don't think it's slave. I think it's genius.
Yeah. And then they can earn money. So like Olive's good one is she does a lot of baking, because I would otherwise buy stuff to go into lunch boxes and morning tea and stuff. So if I'm paying the supermarket, why not pay her? You know, it's the car valet, it's those things as well.
So they get to lean into making more money on things that suit them, that they want to do, and it means that they can earn more if they're not lazy, is essentially the premise. And then that's their kind of extra money.
So we do that. We firmly believe that they buy their own technology and their own first car. But every household's different. We are open about how much things are worth, the value of things. We have conversations in our household that it's not for public knowledge, but so you understand how this machine works. This is what the house is worth. This is how much we spend every week. There were times where I used to do countdown online shops, and I go, right, here's the budget, here's the shopping list, go for it. Just the day-to-day things that they can be involved with. The Cancer Society is an organisation really close to our heart. We lost our first employee to ovarian cancer, and so we've held big fundraising events locally, and once raised 40,000 and once raised 50,000. But our kids were involved. They were there picking out the auctioning. They wear the Cancer Society daffodil proudly on their blazer.
Because they know how much money they've raised for it and they care about it.
And that's important to when you have a position to help, you should help.
So good. Carissa, you have said that confidence is one of the biggest barriers that you think, the reason that women aren't really able to step into their power when it comes to money. Why do you personally think that is? And how can women build financial confidence? Because there is a constant self-doubt and a real lack of confidence, because for a long time we've been shown that men are good with money, women are not.
Yeah, well, it's about nurture and nature, right? And I think it's what we've evidenced, those traditional roles as well, that we've kind of witnessed and been brought up with, and hush, don't talk about money, which is why I love what you guys are doing, because you're actually talking about salaries and you're doing all of those things. I think confidence comes with consistent small actions. Confidence comes when you make a little tiny change and then it has effect. So you start a travel account or a shoe account. I know that sounds really small, but if you consistently do that and it builds, and then you spend it and you go, gosh, I can do something small, then you build confidence over time, right? No one goes from zero to hero. So if you are feeling really unconfident, do one small thing well consistently for a period of 6 weeks and then focus on something else. I mean, we were having this conversation. Tim deals with a lot of divorced, widowed, older women with money who maybe it was hubby who had looked after it, right? And I'm not putting words in your mouth, but is it fair to say that they come in worried and they turn around really quickly? If a woman has education and understanding of...
It's because it's not hard.
It's not hard.
It's not hard, it's just that you don't know it. And I think that's such a great point, because with anything, when you've never done it or you have no practice or you've spent no time in the ring, like not literally, you're not going to be very good at it. Yeah. But actually, everyone started somewhere, and I think it's realising that it's a learnt skill. It's not a natural ability.
No.
It's if you're given the tools or you understand why and you have small wins. This is an awful thing to say, but someone said it to me the other day. They were like, I've got a lot of mates. This was a guy. I've got a lot of mates that work in finance, and they are not the brightest bulbs and the, and it's true. It's not about intelligence. It's just that we haven't had a lot of these conversations or haven't been taught the basics. Therefore, if you don't know it, you can't implement.
Yeah.
And I really resonate with what you say about small wins and getting confidence, because for me, ever since I've started splitting my pay and seeing things go into the different areas and just the experience of every month seeing my travel amount go up or, whatever my little buckets are, I can see it. I feel more confident every month, and it's like just the small wins on the board that make such a difference.
And then also when you do things like you travel, you're not sitting there with regrets, are you? You can focus on the fun side of it, and that builds confidence because you're not associating any negative, you're not reinforcing any negative beliefs, financial beliefs, if you had done the opposite.
And I guess speaking to your own experience of, once being a massive spender where that caused a bit of friction to now having maybe changed the way that you think about instant gratification, buying presents for other people, whatever that is, was that something that you slowly got better at too?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it was, and that's education and evolving over time as well, and knowing that I don't want your ego to get too big here, but knowing that Tim is my person, and if I continued what I was doing, it was detrimental. Do you know what I mean? It was, I needed to have that self-realization to make change as well. And look, I look after a lot of really successful people up and down the country. I love what I do. I can see things and be solution orientated for people. But the common denominator is from someone taking a plan and implementing it. So it's knowing you're doing bad, but not being brave enough to change. Like you have to, it's that self-realization. So if you're sitting there and going, I'm not confident with money, I hate money, I don't have enough money, oh God, how am I going to get through? You need to go, right, today is the day that I'm going to do something small to change it. And I promise the turnaround is actually not long.
Hi there, it's Sophie, the person that's in the podcast currently interrupting herself. So Carissa and Tim, who you are listening to right now in the podcast, amazing, we love them, they're so great. They are financial advisors here in Aotearoa in New Zealand. And so essentially what they do for work is they give personalised financial advice. Just like us at The Curve, which I really, really love, they have an education first approach. In fact, Carissa told me off mic, she just sends all of her clients to listen to The Curve, which I love. So we have arranged a really amazing opportunity for anyone who's a part of the Investing Club to get a free one-on-one with Carissa at no charge. So to normally meet with a financial advisor, honestly, it's really expensive and advice isn't necessarily for everyone. A lot of people contact us saying, hi, do you have any advisors that we can speak to? And then they don't realize actually that advice isn't for them. So if you're in a position where you would really like some help to reach your financial goals, maybe you're juggling mortgage and you've got kids and you've maybe got a partner and you need to get on the same page financially, there's so many reasons why speaking to Carissa and the rest of the team at Rival Wealth could be a really great opportunity. So if you would like to get a free one-on-one 30-minute session with Carissa, that's being put in our Investing Club. So you can find the details for our Investing Club in the podcast show notes. We've got a 7-day trial. You can jump on in, have a look at this deal with Rival Wealth and potentially arrange a time to speak to Carissa if that's something that you would like to do. But yeah, that's enough from me. Back to the podcast. When it comes to people who feel like they're on a different financial page or they have really different spending habits, what would you say would be a good place to start to create either compassion or understanding for the stumbling blocks until they get better? Or because I imagine again it wasn't instant for you to go from I'm going to go and spend on all these things and it's creating friction.
When Tim would say, oh, let's catch up and have a money date tonight, I'd be like, oh God, I'm in trouble. So I think it's about creating a comfortable environment as well. Having a glass of wine often helped us, or having a cold drink in a separate area so that we could just really focus on that rather than me going, oh, ping, this needs to be done. I can get away from it. You actually just have to make space.
I think the dreaming part is good too, isn't it? Because my focus of a money date is always around
history.
Or the numbers and the pie charts and the other wonderful other charts that I can come up with, lines, bars, sort of there's a lot of different sort of charts.
Do you know what I think's happening here? I can just, from a relationship standpoint, Vic and I, as business partners, it's so interesting how like opposites do attract and you do need each other. And I think it's being able to respect and appreciate the things that you bring that are good and bad, which is really hard sometimes when you're good at something and the other person's bad in your eyes.
So now we're talking about different items on the agenda for our money date, like I want to have all the analytical stuff, whereas Carissa wants to have all the, the goals and the dreaming parts. So I think it's making sure that you're not just beating someone else's drum as well, that, you're going along to your money date and this is all my stuff that I want to talk about. And that's where I think then Carissa came on board a lot more, was then we got to start talking about the bigger picture and the things that she loved and the things that she wanted to talk about became a bit more fun and exciting.
Yeah. And being honest as well, like owning where you're not good at. Like hi, my name's Carissa, I'm a practicing financial advisor and I to make bad spending decisions at times. Like actually going, that's what I do. I frustrate my husband when and owning it and going, yeah, okay, but that's true, but that can change.
But then also, do you think for you as well, Tim, it's like, hi, I'm Tim, I'm also a financial, like, what would yours be?
I'm a financial advisor. I'm really tight and I don't like spending anything on anything. So, I think that's most definitely, like, as I say, I've learnt to move more towards Chris's way of thinking, because I know that stuff makes her happy. And so then same again, it's like if you want to be in a relationship with somebody, then you've got to have that compromise along the way. And I think that, that was all part of the training, in terms of the
training. Wow.
I would love to finish with one final question. Looking back, if we're being positive about how far you've come as a couple when it comes to money, do you have something that you're really proud of, like a big financial decision or something that you did together? Like, what would be something where you say, I'm really proud of us for this thing that we did?
I'm really proud of us for still being happily married and creating a business. I'm really proud. We get asked all the time, oh my God, how do you two work together? Like, we get that all the time. And I'm really proud that it works. Like, I love our team. I think we've got good people. We genuinely help people and we have fun along the way. Yes, there's the odd disagreement adjustments need to be made. But yeah, I'm proud of our kids and all that kind of malarkey, but the financial thing that we've done together, which has given us our life and the ability to help others with their lives, is our business.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. Like, we have a lot of working mums in the office, and it's sort of the nature of the way we started is that everyone sort of started out doing 20 hours a week, and a lot of those people now have evolved and are doing a lot more as their kids have got older and stuff too. So being able to have 20 plus families that we're supporting as well, just by facilitating business, but then. So we're not just making widgets or doing stuff. Not that that's a bad thing, but we also then our business is helping people and helping people with money and money decisions. So, and that gives both of us an awful lot of joy.
I think it's such an inspiration and there's obviously a lot that is crossover between what makes you succeed in business as a duo and in your relationship. And I imagine this similar types of conversations or perhaps misalignments when it comes to money were true in business and in your personal life, and one probably helped you learn with the other and vice versa. And I think it's just so cool that you can sit here and be so open about the fact that you're bloody good at what you do, but also that it's not always perfect behind the white picket fence or what appears to be we're two financial advisors in a relationship. It's actually we've had growing pains of our own. And leading by example and sharing that is really awesome. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having us. It's been amazing.
Yeah, you're cool.
Thanks. Let's be mates. I think we need to be friends. But I feel quite emotional because
we're going to have to put a spending limit on it though, okay?
Yeah, that's true. Our friendship dates will have to be maybe like...
governed or by something. Yeah.
I was about to suggest you fly over to Europe for a weekend, but I don't know if we'd get there. No, but seriously, if people do want to work with you and they want to find out more about what you're doing, where can they find that?
I think they can just Google Rival Wealth and you'll find us, Rival Wealth.
We've got an extensive website there which has got lots of cool tips and tricks and a lot of the things that we've talked about today around tools for kids and tools for cash management, some very simple and all that sort of stuff, and transferring money between countries. We've got relationship with companies where they do the best deal on the internet and stuff, so you don't have to keep going shopping around the different places and stuff like that. So yeah. So small stuff like that. So Sometimes it really helps to be, the tight old squirrel, doesn't it? Sometimes it really helps.
They know a lot.
We need a squirrel in our life. And it's really making me think about my romantic life in terms of, I really think the opposites attract when it comes to money is probably the most strong dynamic that you could have, right? Because you're learning so much from each other and you can take the good from each other, which... I think it's hard to do when you have two squirrels or two. I don't know what we are. What would we be?
My professional title is procurement.
Right.
I secure things.
Love it. I'm similar actually. But I think we need a fun animal that represents the the frivolous
Like a panda.
Yeah, so we could go with pandas.
We'll be the panda. We'll workshop that, I think. Yeah, it's work in progress. But thank you guys so much for coming in. It was awesome to meet you both.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to Raising the Curve. These conversations are designed to teach you everything you need to know to be better with your money, from saving to investing to talking with your friends about your salaries, all of that stuff.
And if you like what you heard, we would love if you could please hit subscribe wherever you're listening and leave a comment. Let us know what you thought about the episode.
And it only takes 1 second and it would really make our week, our month, our year.
Yeah.
So please do it. Okay. Love you. Bye.
Okay, quickly. The Curve was created to empower and educate you about investing, but we are not financial advisors.
Our platform exists for educational purposes only, and it doesn't provide personalized investing advice for your individual needs and should not be relied upon to make an investment or financial decision.
And always remember to do your own research before making any investment or financial decision.
We're here for any knowledge and support you need, but the final call is always yours.
And thanks for being here.
You got this.
Yeah, we know you got this.